Hey folks, Grant Armour here with the Outdoor Rec School of Three Rivers. I am at the Twin Lakes boat launch in Robbinsdale getting ready to go out for a kayak. And today we are going to talk about the fundamentals of paddle strokes. How we have proper form to protect our bodies, make ourselves move nice and efficiently through the water. We're going to cover the forward stroke, the reverse stroke, and the sweep stroke. Those should be enough to get you moving and out on the water so you can go find some nice nature. All right, so let's start off with how we hold our paddle. We like to think about the idea of a paddler's box. And that paddler's box is going to mean that our hands are about the same distance apart that our elbows are. So if I hold my paddle over my head, I should have a nice 90-degree box with my elbows bent. I'm not touching the paddle on my head unless I've got short forearms, but it's got me this nice box. And what that's going to do is allow me to utilize my core to paddle. If I'm holding nice and tight, I'm going to be really inclined to use my arms to do the work. But if I get myself so that I've got that nice paddler's box, now I can start to do the work for my core. And as I paddle, notice that my whole torso is rotating. Underneath the boat here, you can't see, my feet are rested firmly on some foot pegs. And so I'm actually translating energy all the way from the ball of my foot out through my body as I rotate around and around. If I was just using my arms to do this paddling, it would look like this. And I'm already going to start to feel a little bit of burn in my arms from doing that. But if I start engaging my core, now I can paddle for miles and miles. So the other piece that's really going to help me engage my core is using proper posture. So if I'm sitting here slumped in the boat, I'm not going to be able to get very effective and powerful core rotation. What I need to do is sit up nice and straight. You can almost imagine there's one string pulling your head up and another one pulling your chest out. And that's really going to allow me to maximize my core rotation. All right, so now that we know where to put our hands on the paddle, we got to figure out the right way for the paddle to be oriented. So right now you're looking at me from the bow, the front of my boat. So I'm gonna actually turn the paddle around so it would be in the correct orientation for you, no longer for the correct orientation for me. And what you really want is you want the curved part of the blade to be towards your body. Think of it like an ice cream scoop, and you want to scoop ice cream towards yourself. And then the little bit of wingtip on the paddle blade, that should also be up. And that's because when it dips in the water, that's going to give it a nice, efficient profile in the water. It's never no part of it is going too deep, but it's allowing for efficient movement of the water. So you might find yourself needing to flip your paddle around in one direction or another direction to get it correct. Now this is correct for me. I've got that scoop facing me, the wingtips up. And I'm going to keep it this way even when I'm doing reverse paddle strokes, because the blade shape is designed for the ergonomics of my body, and I want to keep that in mind to keep myself safe. Now paddles come in all sorts of different lengths, from under 200 centimeters to over 240. Generally speaking, a 210 is going to be about right for most people who are less than 6 feet tall, over 5 feet tall, and are paddling a boat that's similar to mine. If you're using a sit on top where you're sitting higher, you're going to want a longer one. If you're taller, you're going to want a longer one. 140 is a pretty long paddle, so that's going to be either a pretty tall and wide boat or a tall person. And then whitewater paddles, where you're getting super vertical in your paddle stroke, those end up being a little bit shorter as well. But broadly speaking, somewhere in the 210, 220 range is going to be about the right paddle for most folks. All right, so we're almost starting in on our paddle strokes, but before we get there, one more ergonomic piece, really thinking about that core rotation. The way I like to think about it is that I'm imagining I just won a world championship wrestling belt and I want to show it off to everyone. So as I'm paddling this side, I'm showing off everyone to my right. Hey, did you see my wrestling belt? And then as I paddle this side, I'm showing off to everyone on my left. Hey, did you see my wrestling belt? And as much as I can keep that core rotating, the more efficient my paddle strokes are going to be, the better ergonomics I'm going to have. The other thing is I want to keep my paddle shaft a little bit away from my body. So you can almost imagine you've got a volleyball pinned between your chest and the paddle shaft, and that as you're doing those paddle strokes, you're keeping that consistent shaft distance from your body. Every paddle stroke has three parts: the catch, the propulsion, and the release. Now, when we start our forward paddle stroke, we're going to put our catch in down by our toes. We're going to propel in a straight line along our bodies, and we're going to release straight up. That's going to set up the opposite blade for the catch, propulsion, release. And we really want to start at our toes and end just past our hips for that forward paddle stroke. Now you'll see my top hand is never going above the height of my nose. You never want that to go higher up, because if I get my hand up like this, I've made my shoulder really vulnerable, and our shoulders are actually our most vulnerable part of our body from overuse injuries while paddling. Dislocations can happen when you get your arm way up here. So we want to make sure we're using that good form, core rotation, catch the toes, pull straight back through core rotation, and we're keeping that top hand relatively low. To keep things simple, we're just going to flip that one right around for the reverse. Our catch is going to happen just behind our hip, is going to push forward to our toes and release at our toes. Now you'll notice those early paddle strokes, my boat starts to turn a little bit. So if you want to have really good form, practice off really gentle strokes to begin with, and then start putting the power in as you get further along. But again, the reverse stroke, catch happens just behind your hip, propulsion right along your body, and the release at your toes. Now for our general and easy turning stroke. This is called the sweep. And the way the sweep works is we're going to catch still by our toes, but instead of the paddle blade pulling straight back in the water, we're going to make a big sweeping arch with it. So I catch by my toes, make that go nice and wide, and I'm going to rotate all the way back to my stern. I don't want to hit it, but I want to rotate all the way around. So again, catch at my toes, rotate around, and release just before touching the rear end of my boat. Now I can continue to do those in a forward direction, and my boat is always going to turn to the opposite side of where I'm doing my rotation. If you're early to doing any of these paddle strokes, it can be a great idea to let your eye follow the blade to train your body to do that rotation. And then after that, you can start to do a better job of keeping your eyes forward while you make these paddle strokes. So I can do that on one side, I can do that on the other side. Again, catching at my toes, nice wide arc, and releasing right before I hit my stern. But let's say I'm in a tight place and I need to turn around really fast. I can combine a forward sweep on one side with a reverse sweep on the other to do a donut turn. So if I forward sweep on my right, release out of the water, now I need to reset to catch on the stern of the opposite side, do a reverse sweep. I'm keeping my paddle blades oriented the same way, but in a matter of only a handful of strokes, I can turn myself all the way around in one spot. So there you have it, folks. Those are our three basic kayak paddle strokes: the forward stroke, the reverse stroke, and the sweep stroke. Combine those with good posture, nice core rotation, proper form of not letting that paddle shaft get too close to your body, not letting your hands get too high, and you're going to be well set up for efficient early kayak touring. There are certainly more advanced paddle strokes that come into play as you dive deeper into your paddling, but these ones will get you to the majority of the places that you want to go. The one last tool that I recommend practicing is just the stop stroke, which is not really a stroke at all, but it's just a matter of dropping your blade in the water on one side and then the other such that you don't turn. So it's just going to be a stop, stop, stop. Sometimes it takes 4, maybe even 5 back and forths to come to a complete stop without letting your boat turn. That's all I got for you today. I hope that you all have a fantastic time next time you get out on the water. And if you learned something in this video, go ahead and give us a like or send a share off to the folks that you think might find this useful. See you later.